Rocking their stockings, Carol. You know what they were doing? They were doing that stuff where they were throwing, the Gramps was throwing Grandma up and like throwing her down between his knees, and she was coming up and the skirts were lifting up. And all the elderly people at the time, in 1938 were like, this is the death of civilization. Remember that, Carol? Remember how everybody talked about the death of civilization back in 1938? I remember that. I'm definitely that old. So welcome to Monkey Time. We've got 28 minutes. Our phone number is right there. You can call anything in Raleigh you want to talk about, or anything in the world you want to talk about, 996-6775. And if you're a teenage boy who just wants to call me a fag, Carol, we've dealt with that. We've done that. It's over. So just don't do that. So anyway, I mean, you could. It's just not going to bother us. I called Officer Knuckles on him a couple of, years ago. Remember that? Officer Knuckles took care of the people who were harassing me. So I swear to God, there was a Raleigh police officer called Officer Knuckles. He was amazing. We got to talk about the Raleigh sign ordinance. Oh yeah, I haven't posted anything on Twitter for a couple days because I have a life, but I will. I'll post links to everything we talk about tonight when I get a chance. We got to talk about Raleigh's sign ordinance. Okay, this is big. I work at a small local. God dang it, Carol! It's my foot catching the microphone. This is how professional we are. Precisely how professional we are. So it's under my leg. Okay, there it is. All right. So I work at a small, local business. I don't own it or anything. I don't speak for it, but I work at the Reader's Corner bookstore on Hillsborough Street, and we have all these windows in front that are covered with flyers, right? So I'm looking at the Planning Commission's new sign proposal that came out a week or so ago, and they're talking about, limiting all the in-store signs, the in-window signs. And I'm like, well, what does that say for flyers? In other words, they're not signs that promote us. We open our windows to anybody in the community, the Gregg Museum, the North Carolina Opera Company, the Symphony, Kings, whatever, any club, right? Volume 11, whatever, although they're closed now, I think, aren't they? Any club that wants to put up flyers so that the foot traffic who comes up and down Hillsborough Street to our store can see this. Flyers are a key part of the cultural life of a city. Now, the city's clamped down on putting flyers on telephone poles, which, fine, that's their right. But, Nice Price's window is filled with music flyers. The guitar shop, Guru Guitars, their windows are filled with shows. What? Cup of Joe, right? So I have no idea if the proposed new sign rules that would cut that down would be something that, would affect flyers. Have they even thought about it? I really doubt it. Here's what happened. Okay, now that I've admitted that I haven't, that I don't know what the situation with flyers is, but suspect that they didn't even think about it and that their new rules would ban flyers in store windows all up and down Hillsborough Street and elsewhere in the city. That's my suspicion. If that's not true, Carol, I will print out the sentence, "That was not true," and eat it. Okay? But I guarantee you that the initial proposal, I'll bet you, the initial proposal from the Planning Commission of Raleigh that has now gotten huge pushback on signs in the city because it was idiotic, would have banned in-store flyers in the windows of stores. All right, here's the thing. Here's what happened. There's a woman who runs a business at the corner of Peace and Glenwood who, Carol, she has this blinking neon sign that was going all night. Really distracting, really ugly, just a horrible person. She invested a lot of money in it. I'm sorry, she's not a horrible person, a horrible sign, and this person made a horrible decision. It's not the child that's bad, Carol. It's the behavior of the child that's bad, right? I got to remember that. It's really easy to attack the people instead of the behavior that they're doing. You're a fine person, lady, who put up this blinking neon sign at the corner of Peace and Glenwood. Just ridiculous, right? Ridiculous, stupid sign. The neighbors went nuts because they could see it blinking constantly. You made a stupid decision, but you yourself perhaps aren't stupid. Okay, there, I'm trying to be fair. So that happened, and the City Planning Commission took that this is important. The City Planning Commission took that episode where this one person put up this blinking bright neon sign that went all night long at the corner of Peace and Glenwood. And the City Planning Commission decided that the best way to deal with that, Carol, was to, put the next one up, do you mind, Carol? Was to create new sign rules that would make illegal a quarter of the businesses in Raleigh's signage. That was the Planning Commission's, that was the proposal that the Planning Commission decided to take up a couple weeks ago. In response to one blinking sign, the Planning Commission, in a completely idiotic move, again, Carol, that's the move that's idiotic, not the people, right? I'm trying to get better at that. In a completely idiotic move, the Planning Commission decides that now's the time to take up this massive revision that actually makes all the businesses and signage in Raleigh more tight and more constrictive instead of just dealing with this one ridiculously obnoxious blinking sign at the corner of Peace and Glenwood. And the woman is being really stubborn. She's like the Oakwood House lady who's suing, you know, who overturned the approval for the modernist house in Oakwood. Very stubborn people. These people make bad laws. And the City Planning Commission decides to do this. And the outcry was so great, Carol. The outcry from businesses was so great. And a couple of John Odom deserves credit for this. It's not just businesses versus liberals or whatever. This is really idiots in this idiotic behavior. It's so hard. It's so hard. Idiotic behavior from city staffers and people on the Planning Commission who have no clue what the city of Raleigh needs or what city life is. You know what it reminds me of, Carol? You do, because I told you about it. What's it remind me of? It reminds me of the mellow mushroom debacle. And debacle is the word, right? Where the city sign people were actually trying to kill two enormous, huge purple mushrooms at the same corner, Peace and Glenwood there, right? They don't blink all night, right? Because they violated some ordinance, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, McDonald's up on Capitol Boulevard can have a big golden arches, a big McDonald's, and Ronald McDonald sitting on the roof, right, Carol? So it's all about crushing small businesses. Anybody on the Planning Commission, can we put up the previous one, Carol? We want to know, who proposed the rule, who decided that now would be a good time to create new sign rules that would outlaw signs at a quarter of the businesses in the city of Raleigh? Who was that? And why do they still have a seat on the Planning Commission? Now, I don't want anyone to lose their job, Carol. If it was a city, you know, but these people, they have this pinched notion of what cultural life of a city is. Carol, I could talk about this for 28 minutes. All right. Tell me to back off and I'll back off. We'll talk about Crimea and how we just kind of have to chalk that up. It's like Putin won one, you know. Sorry, he's got Crimea. But we can talk about that if you want. And, you know, I don't want to send any U.S. troops there. Do you, Carol? Hey, let's defend Crimea from Russian aggression. It's like a part of Russia. It's been a cultural part of Russia for centuries. Khrushchev gave it to the Ukraine in the 50s for some kind of weird reason because Khrushchev was primarily responsible for thousands, if not tens of thousands of deaths in the Ukraine in the 40s and 50s. He was the main guy for Stalin in the Ukraine when all these deaths were happening. And so I don't know, maybe to make up for it, he gave the Ukraine Crimea when he became the head of Russia, the Soviet Union, right? And Russians resented it at the time, and Russians resent it now, and now they've got it back. And as long as they don't advance further into the Ukraine, I'm like, done deal, man, I'm sorry. I don't really care. Obama's not being weak by not attacking Russia there. He should, Carol, be pushing for more sanctions against specific individuals. They've got some, but if they're not attacking the apartments that these Russian oligarchs go to in London, if they're not making it, you know, like impossible for them to enjoy their luxuries in the rest of Europe, then that's a mistake. But sorry, I don't think we should worry much about Crimea, and I don't think it says much about the U.S. and a new Cold War, which of course Fox and Sarah Palin and all those people, they want a new war because, you know, when there's a new war and we have a big new enemy, you're much more easy to control. You know what I'm saying? When there's a new enemy, a big evil Russian bear again, you're much more scared. You're much more easy to control. I'll never forget after 9/11 happened, listening to 680 WPTF here in the Triangle, and you know the conservative AM talk station. And if they had any guts, they'd hire a liberal, but you know they don't. So you know whatever. They don't want to piss off their audience, I guess. But woman calling in to one of the jerks. I don't know if it was Agar. I don't think it was Jerry Agar back then. But you know one of the just really pinched minds that they get to do the afternoon talk stuff, and. She was worried. This was when the sarin gas stuff was or the anthrax stuff was happening, and she had put plastic up on her windows, Carol, and was calling in to say like, now what? I've got plastic up on my windows. This was like in 2002, you know, early 2002. I've got plastic on my windows. Now what? You know, that's what they want. I was just like in the car listening to this going, oh my God, this country's going down the tubes. And it has ever since. We've given up all these rights. We've allowed this surveillance state to take over. We have no-fly list that you can't know about and you can't contest. You have no legal right to contest your inclusion on a no-fly list in America. How did that happen? It's a secret list that tells you can't fly and you have no recourse? What country is this again, right? So anyway, so the countries, they want you scared. My point, Carol, what was my point? Putin, Crimea. Oh, here's my point. If you can pull back from the fear, right? Oh, the Russians are after us again. If you can pull back from the fear and read up a little bit. Stephen Cohen, one of the customers, a regular customer in our store, turned me on to Stephen Cohen. He writes in The Nation. He's a generally left-wing guy. He says, look, this is what it looks like from them. The U.S. has been encroaching on the former Soviet bloc and trying to get more and more of them into NATO for decades now, right? Economically, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like that. You know, and if the countries want it, they should have it. But from the Russian perspective, what they've seen over the last 20, 30 years since the breakup of the Soviet Union is this real aggressive encroachment on the part of NATO. And so Putin, who's having trouble at home, he's clamping down on the gays. That's always a sign that you're a government in trouble, Carol, right? Clamp down on the gays, find somebody to attack, right? Anyway, whether it's black folks, it's, you know, gay people, it's poor people, or, you know, whatever. The Jews, how could I forget the Jews? The Jews are your go-to on this one, but the gays in Uganda and Russia and other places, that's the main thing. That's when they do that, you know they're weak. You know the government's weak. And so Putin has had real trouble. You know, he's clamping down on dissent. He's trying to create this totalitarian state with him and his buddies at the top. It's not even trying, he's done it. But here's the thing. He's having a lot of trouble. Pussy Riot has been driving him crazy, right, Carol? So what does he do? He inflames the nationalist sentiment, nationalism, right? Russia, above all, we will retake Crimea, and his approval ratings, which are tanking, go through the roof when he does that. It's the same reason Ronald Reagan invaded Grenada in the 80s. His approval ratings were tanking. Oh, we go invade Grenada and then save some medical students who probably would have gotten home anyway, and bam, his approval ratings go up. Yay, US. It's the same principle. It's the same thing. So that bothers me. I'm not saying there's nothing bad about the Russian attack and grabbing of Crimea, but when you look at the history and you look at the encroachment from a Russian perspective of what NATO's been trying to do, pull the Ukraine, pull all these other people, and then, you know, Putin's main hired guy gets who's corrupt as Putin and his buddies, you know, gets overthrown and the people run through his palace. Kind of like the people ran through the palaces in the Russian Revolution after 1917, Carol. Oh, there's an irony. But you can sort of see it from his perspective. And so what he ends up doing, and Crimea really is culturally, primarily affiliated with Russia. And you know what? I hate to say it, the Tatars and other Tartars or whatever, and other people there that don't want to be part of Russia, I'm sorry, I'm not going to, I don't think we should shed a drop of blood for, to get Crimea out from under Russia right now. It's just ridiculous to even suggest it. But the people, the conservatives, the neoconservatives, they're going nuts. Oh, Obama's weak, Obama's weak, Obama's weak. What do you want him to do? Oh, Carol, they would want to drop a tactical nuke. Let's just drop a tactical nuke on Crimea. That'll show Putin. Now what do you have? That's really the kind of mentality that you have. We need stronger sanctions. Putin's a thug. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, you can look inside the mindset of the thug and see what his perspective is and say, okay, his buddy was overturned. I see what's happening here. Crimea has always been technically, very close to Russia, and it's his now. He won one. I know Sarah Palin drives her crazy to say that. He won this one. We'll get him some other time. Come on, you don't think Putin's going to get his comeuppance at some point? Right. Well, Dick Cheney hasn't yet. So I don't know, maybe they're survivable. Yeah, let's talk about number 8. Man, that sign ordinance. So businesses are pushing back, Carol, and you know what? Oh, I got distracted. Let me go back to the sign ordinance for a second. So this idiotic behavior from the Raleigh Planning Commission, that would outlaw the current signage of a quarter of the businesses in Raleigh, got this huge reaction. And now they're backtracking, right? And the city council people are like, whoa. Okay, and now it looks like we're actually going to see a loosening and a revisioning of the sign ordinance. There's a pinched mentality. I keep using the term pinched, and it fits. There's a pinched mentality when it comes to signage in Raleigh. We don't want billboards on every block, that's certainly not what we're talking about, but there's a pinched mentality. And now businesses and and I want to see Marianne Baldwin, I want to see Russ Stevenson, and Thomas Crowder, who's ill right now. One of our city council district folks is ill right now. So I understand, but one of the articles I read said that Thomas Crowder was one of the people pushing for this more tight revision of the sign ordinance, and Thomas Crowder needs to be corrected gently because he's ill right now, corrected on this, and his objection needs to be, sorry Thomas, we wish you well health-wise, but you're wrong on this one. All right, and Nancy McFarland also. So they've got a commission now, Carol. They've got a committee that's going to look at new sign regulations. Committee for the committee? A committee for the Planning Commission to make recommendations. So, but it's going to be a months-long process, but at least we've killed this idiotic notion that came out of the Raleigh Planning Commission. And whoever that person was on the Planning Commission, we should know that person's name. And we should ask them what they were thinking. And then we should ask them to politely step down from the Planning Commission. All right. So, North Carolina Democrats are self-destructing. I mean, the official Democrats. I'm a registered independent, but I lean left. Y'all know that. But, the North Carolina Democratic Party is pretty much self-destructing. The head of the North Carolina Party, tried to hire somebody who had a sexual violence history, and they had already had a sexual harassment scandal a couple of years ago. The Kay Hagan campaign has said, we're going to work with the Wake County Democratic Party, right? And not the statewide Democratic Party, because it's pretty dysfunctional. They're blaming the liberals on this, Carol, because apparently the liberals are the ones who elected the new head of the recent head of the Democratic Party, who's making all these idiotic decisions. But it's not the liberals. It's that this guy, remember, Carol, he's someone who the head of the North Carolina Democratic Party is somebody who, started taking trips and didn't think that he needed to talk to anybody before he announced his new choice for executive director. He's an idiot. Oh, no. Damn it. It's so easy to attack the child and not the behavior. he's making so many idiotic decisions that it's understandable that you and I would have serious doubts about the capabilities of this particular guy. Not liberals. It's not a problem with the liberals in the Democratic Party. It's not a problem with the left wing of the heart of the Democratic Party is its left wing. Just like you could argue the heart of the Republican Party, they're the ones who come out for the primaries, is its conservative far-right wing. The heart of the Democratic Party, being left of center, is not the problem. But we're getting the blame for the decisions of this guy who's making idiotic decisions at the top of the North Carolina Democratic Party. And he's not alone. There are other Democrats there, and a lot of donors are fleeing the North Carolina Democratic Party. What does that mean for 2014? This is key. 2014 is a key election. If the Senate goes Republican, we are effed. That's what we are. We're effed. Did you see that article, that op-ed in the NNO, in the Times, Carol, the New York Times, about the F word? No. It's by the guy who wrote a book called The F Word. And he laughs at newspapers acting like it's still 1950, who put F, asterisk, 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 instead of the F word, right? And he does a whole piece about it, and he says, the funny part is I can't even use it. Because what's happening is that quotes from politicians, actual things they say using the F word and the S word, in other words, are not in the paper. And so it's not journalism if you're hiding the truth, right? I think it was a really fascinating argument. So I can't say the F word, but this guy, there was an op-ed in the New York Times. I'm sure the NNO will run it shortly. The guy who wrote the book, The F Word, it had an op-ed in the New York Times a day or so ago where he talked about the idiocy of newspapers refusing to print the F word. So. We watched the documentary, This Film Is Yet to Be Rated. Oh, This Film Is Not Yet Rated. Yeah, Carol says her and her girlfriend watched the documentary, This Film Is Not Yet Rated, which is all about the rating system and how bullcrap it is, right? The motion picture, the R, the PG, PG-13 and all that. And how, isn't it funny, Carol, how, gay kisses are worse than straight kisses? That was one of the arguments, or one of the points that they clearly demonstrate. A gay kiss gets a higher rating than a straight kiss. Right? That's the only thing. Can I say that, Carol? Is that the F word or is that the S word? I think it's the U word. I think it's up yours. That's what that is. So This Film Is Not Yet Rated is a really great documentary about Hollywood and the rating system and the idiocy of the rating system. And guess what, Carol? That film never got a rating. The Motion Picture Association of America refused to even give it a rating, right? All right, or maybe they gave it an X or something. I don't. They gave it an NC-17. Oh, okay. For the overuse of the F word, yeah. Anyway, there's that op-ed in the New York Times a couple days ago from the guy that wrote the book, The F Word. It's a great little book. I've only paged through it. It comes through the bookstore regularly. It's a great op-ed. You should check it out. 3.5 minutes? All right, so what does this mean for 2014? Right? What does that mean for 2014? I'm telling you, man, Greg Fishel has talent. He knows that instinctively. I'm still doing that. It means you and I have to step up our game in North Carolina. Kay Hagan is considered one of the key Senate races. It's very close. They're going to be dumping tons of money, and the Supreme Court just today made it even easier for them to dump tons of money. This whole notion that dumping money is the same as free speech is bullcrap. It just completely ignores the reality that a few people with lots of money then have their speech mean much more than all of the rest of us who don't have so much money. It completely ignores reality. To make the philosophical libertarian argument, paying money is free speech. It just completely ignores the reality of how that actually works. And what that means is very, very rich people can buy elections, and a handful of very, very rich people can buy elections, and everybody else is shut out of the democracy. That's what that means. That's what they're saying, and the Supreme Court said that's okay. So you and I have to step up our game. I don't really like Kay Hagan. I don't think she has much courage, but she'll be a damn sight better than Tom Tillis. And you and I need to get people to the polls in November. We need to start thinking about that now. We need to start volunteering and making phone calls and contacting people. The projections of Latin American voters and women voters and young voters who go Democratic generally, the projections show their participation in this midterm election dropping precipitously. If the Republicans take the Senate, we are screwed. Screwed. All kinds of restrictions on abortion, all kinds, like horrible restrictions on abortion, all kinds of horrible anti-gay crap. It's just gonna be bad.
1 minute. You want to talk
All right, 1 minute. What do we got to talk about? So First Friday is this Friday, right? Okay. I had a great time at Durham's Third Friday a couple weeks ago. I actually wrote about it for The Independent, and I think if you go to my Twitter page, and scroll back down, there's a link there. It was really fun, really interesting, and if you haven't gone to the Third Fridays in Durham, you might want to make an evening of it. Go out, find some really cool, there's some really cool bars downtown now, some neat restaurants. And the galleries are really cool. Golden Belt is like art space times 5, Carol. The Golden Belt complex, they have a big place, big room with building 3 is just like art space with all these studios and then a main gallery in the center.
15 seconds.
It's just really great. So First Friday is this Friday in Raleigh. Opera. Oh, the North Carolina Opera last week was great. Oh my God, it was so great. 5?
Yep.
6, all right. North Carolina Opera, thumbs up.